Hi, welcome to Moments with Marilyn. I'm your host, Marilyn Boyer, the mom of 14 homeschool kids who love the Lord and love each other. Thanks for joining us today. Today, we've got an exciting guest with us, Vicky Bentley, and she is the mom of 8 kids and foster parent of almost 50, which is amazing. So, Vicky, I don't even remember when I met you. All I know is it's a long time ago.
Golly, Marilyn, it's been between 20 and 30 years. I'm not sure exactly where in there. I knew of you before I knew you. We prayed for Josh and your family.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So that would be like 24, 25 years ago. Yeah.
So we know that for so long, and I'm hopefully most of your listeners know too, that for so long, you and Rick have been such beloved and respected pioneers in the homeschooling community. And so I was just excited to meet Marilyn Boyer. But then Rick and I served on a state board together. And then you and I saw each other a lot at the state conferences where we were both speaking. So again, between 20 and 25 years. So it's been a while.
It has. So tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. I mean, I think it's amazing that you've foster parented almost 50 kids.
Oh, well, God gives everybody different ministries, and we kind of fell into foster care when we had just 3 children. Then we had a baby and a toddler and a 5-year-old, and we had moved to a new location and across the country. And my husband was in the military, and there was a story on the news of a tragedy that had happened, and we knew that there were 5 kids that were going to need to be placed, and we just knew they were going to divide those kids up. So we said,
wow,
we could take all of them. I don't know what I was thinking.
Wow.
I wasn't sure I could handle the ones I had.
Yours were little at the time, right?
And isn't that always the case? We think, oh my goodness, I don't think I can handle what I've got. But God gives you grace for what he gives you. And we weren't able to take those 5 kids because they were in a neighboring state, and they wouldn't allow the placement. But we said, if there's kids in that state that need homes, I'll bet there's kids here. And that's how we got involved in foster care. Wow. And so it just was interesting. But actually, our fostering was what was actually the catalyst for what we're going to be talking about today. I needed to find a way to segue kids in on a day's notice into our routine, our rhythm, so that they didn't feel like outsiders. And nothing says you're part of the family like, hey, help us with chores. So
that's right. So you've got 8 girls of your own, correct?
All girls, Jim.
All girls.
We have a 20-year span. We had 3 17-year-olds when I was 27 years old. I was a grandmother by 30.
Whoa.
So the benefit of adopting, when I say I have 23 grandchildren and 7 great grandchildren, they used to look at me like I had 2 heads, not so much anymore with the gray hair, but that's how we got a kind of a jump start. My oldest daughter is 10 years younger than I am. So.
Wow. That's amazing.
Family. God has blessed us with 8 daughters that are our permanent kids, and then a bunch that we've gotten to borrow and love on along the way. So
wow. Did you get all girls? Like, were all the ones you fostered girls?
No, we actually fostered a variety to begin with, but later on we were part of what our agency called the Mary and Elizabeth Project, which was pairing a veteran mother, nice way of saying an old woman, pairing an established mom with a foster teen who either was pregnant and expecting a child she was probably going to try to raise, or had a baby already. And so my role was to be the foster mom to the daughter and almost the foster grandma to the baby, not to take over the mothering, but to train her and apprentice her in being a mom.
Wow.
And that's why we end up with a lot of girls at the end. So
yeah, that's such a neat ministry. So tell us what you're doing now. I know, like HSLDA, what's your ministry?
Sure. I worked with our state organization for many years, near and dear to my heart, always and forever. But I was able to segue into working with HSLDA when HSLDA began an early years program, or a preschool to 8th grade support program for parents of kids in that age range. We had for special needs for many years, almost from the beginning. Then we added high school. Then we needed something for that age before that for parents who were just starting out or had kids in that middle range. So that's what I did. I started that program, and now I'm the team leader for that department, and I love it. I feel like I get to do I get paid to do what I love to do. It's just amazing. And HSLDA is such a blessing to work for, and our co-laborers are just amazing. And I'm still a support group leader, have been since 1991.
Wow.
So I've been a support group leader in our new community as well as in our older community. So I just like to think of myself as kind of an encourager of families, especially moms. So
that's great. That's what I love to do too. And, I would encourage people, if you are not a member of HSLDA, join. We were taken to court back before there was an HSLDA back in 1980.
I tell your story in some of my workshops. I do. I try to encourage them. This is why you need to, this is the history. You don't know the history. It wasn't always this free.
No, it wasn't. And it might not be again. I mean, we live in a crazy country right now. And if, you need to join HSLDA because there are people protecting your freedom. And it's scary to be there by yourself. Let me tell you that. It really is. So I encourage people everywhere, join HSLDA. They're bulldogs to guard your freedom, and they care about you. They really do. They will defend you, and they've got programs like Vicky has to help you. They've got something for single moms. They're a great organization. But our topic today is how to successfully manage chore time in your family. And that's a big one. So Vicky, tell us some reasons that you feel like it's important to involve your kids in the chores. Isn't it easier just to do it yourself?
Marilyn, it is. It's a lot easier. It's always easier to do something ourselves than to teach somebody how to do it. But part of the reason this is so important to me, and not just for my family, but when I share with others, this is a really popular topic. I have a workshop called Getting Kids to Help at Home, and it's usually pretty packed because this is not just for homeschoolers, it's for anybody, but especially in the homeschooling community, I find that so many moms I talk to are overwhelmed with their homes because they get up in the morning, they're trying to get, 1 to 12 or 15 or 27 kids ready for the day and whatever your family may be, but they're trying to get everybody ready but they've got to start math and they've got to start language arts and, we're homeschooling, so we've got to get this done. And, but they're panicked because they got to start their academics, they think, but the breakfast dishes are still on the table and they're worried about what the baby's going to be eating off of the floor and the beds aren't made, and all day long that just weighs on them. And I like to tell moms, it's okay to take 20 minutes at the beginning of your day to get your house in some kind of order. Now, I'm not talking, if you're taking 2 hours every morning to try to get things organized, give me a call and we'll try to, find some systems for you here. But basically, I like to think of chores as home management training. Actually, I have a book and I call it, it's a home management training manual. Home management training, and home management training is part of home ec, and home ec is part of homeschooling. So really, you're just starting your homeschool day with a non-academic subject. So you could still feel that you're homeschooling, but
absolutely.
People don't quit homeschooling because they can't find the right math book or the right language arts curriculum, usually. They quit homeschooling because they're trying to do math and language and social studies and science, and the laundry is up to here. And dad's eating frosted flakes that he's eating out of a bowl he had to wash himself, whatever. And you feel overwhelmed. And so my goal in a lot of my workshops is to give moms hope, to give them some systems that they can put into tweak for their family, adapt, get ideas from. Nothing you and I talk about. You've got great information on your side as well. And I know you would say the same thing. We're sharing what we've done, what we've seen done, but it doesn't mean you have to do it that way. Glean from it what you can. But so that's why for me, it was important to share with families that there are 2 reasons to involve my kids in chores. First is I want to show my kids that they're part of the family team. We're here to serve each other. And that's something I learned with our bonus kiddos coming in. But I also wanted to apprentice them in living skills. And yes, it is easier to do it yourself. It's like anything you do. If you made a meal and tried to include your little ones cooking, oh my word, it takes an hour longer to make anything.
Yeah.
One of the questions I've gotten from parents sometimes is, well, this is easy for you to say because you had 8 kids who were, older by the time you got started or whatever. I have 5 kids under 5. If I do this and I've got 5 kids under 5, they're no help. And I said, you're right. If you've got a bunch of little kids, you're really going to end up doing a lot of these chores yourself. And I'm going to show you how to apprentice them in it, but you're going to end up doing them yourself. That's just the way it is. But the fact is, if you don't do this, if you aren't purposeful about this, you're still going to be doing it yourself, and you're not working yourself out of a job.
Absolutely. That is so true. I always tell people it was hardest for me when I had 4 little ones because they were all young and you've got to do everything yourself. But if you'll train them when they're little, it pays off so much over
right.
in the future.
You are so right.
You outlined 4 basic principles for people to understand to lay a proper foundation. Let's talk about those principles.
Well, the first I think would be to have age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate expectations. We're going to talk about expectations a lot through here. I was listening to one of your recent interviews with Israel Wayne, and he talked a lot about managing expectations. And I think in so many issues we run into in life, Israel's right. It's all about managing expectations. So I want to make sure that I have age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate expectations of my kids from around, 6 months to 5 years or whatever. We're just working on our kids being hopefully cheerfully obedient. They want to be helpers at this stage. It's really hard because when they really want to be helpers is when they're really not helpers.
When they're not.
But this is a really important time for us to model for them, to talk to them a lot about what we're doing, why we're doing it, but understand that, when they help us sweep the floor, it's not really going to look like the floor got swept, but we're modeling for them what it looks like to help. Then as they get a little older, maybe 5-ish to 12-ish, we're working more on them being diligent and thorough. And we'll talk about that, I think, later on this morning. Being consistent, being respectful, still working on that obedience, I'm sure, for most of us at that age level, unless you've, found a way for them to be totally obedient by 5. I want to hear it. And then a little later on, as they get into those teen years, we're showing them that it's a privilege to be able to work independently when they can show us that they're faithful to complete their task, when they can be accountable. And this is training for them in their later work. So those are just really important to me. And then the second principle that we talk about, and in my book, I just go through these really briefly. This is like the very beginning of the book, just to lay some foundations. This is not how to raise your kids. But the second is to establish some rules. The first, we've got these expectations. The second is our standards or our rules. I like to put as many things in writing as possible, not necessarily because my kids need it, but because I can't remember from day to day what I told them. So if
you've done that so well. I want to show people what you've done, but you've done it super well.
But I put as much in writing as possible for a couple of reasons. It helps me. It also helps any of my kids who happen to process things differently or need that extra reminder. So it's in writing. I don't have to be the bad guy all the time because it's in writing. I'm not nagging them. Just go look at the chart. We also, in establishing standards in our home, for our family, the Bible is the standard. God's word is the standard. And so we try to stress to our kids that there's at least 2 kinds of rules in our house. There's God's rules and there's house rules. God's rules are not up for appeal. They are immovable. I mean, if the Bible says we're not going to steal, we're not going to steal. There's certain things. Now, in a house rule, one of our house rules might be that you need to be, I don't know, make this up, in your room by 10 o'clock. But if you're out with, some friends from church and something happens and you guys have to be out later, call me, let me know, or there's going to be something that lasts longer and you want to make an appeal for a later curfew time, that's up for appeal. So those are some standards there. Then that kind of segues into our third, which would be having a working knowledge of family discipline. Again, I'm not here to tell anybody how to raise your kids, how to discipline your kids, spank, don't spank, whatever it might be. But I just want to remind us that punishment, the word punishment, has to do with a penalty for an offense. I don't want to penalize my kids. Right. I want to discipline them. That's more about teaching. It's about training and correcting and restoring. There's a lot of resources you guide them to a bunch of material. I have things as well. But the key is none of the things we're talking about here today are going to matter if your kids don't obey you. So it's a whole lot easier to work with a cheerful, obedient child. So, and the last thing that I learned later in my life than I wish I had was to tie strings to their hearts. And I don't mean this in a manipulative way, like, tying them to me in a bondage type of way. I mean, building relationship with them. It's like tying love strings to their hearts, I guess. I do a separate workshop called Jumpstart to Joyful Motherhood. And I talk about how for many years, I wasn't a very joyful mother of children. I mean, I had a lot of kids, and sometimes we're with our kids 24/7, but we're not really with our kids.
Yeah.
And the Lord had to really show me some things in my life to help me enjoy that season of motherhood. But some of those things were doing things with my children, not always, but as much as I could, smiling and speaking gently with them. It's hard to fuss at somebody and be ugly to them when you're smiling. So if you just make yourself smile, it's really hard to be cranky. Laughing with my kids, not at them. Big difference between laughing with your kids, laughing at your kids. And being interested in what they have to show and tell me. Sometimes when they're really little, some of the things they come in that are, they just want to share with you, and you're in the middle of something, you're trying to get something done for dinner or whatever. But I have a little quote. I can't remember the author. I'll have to look it up. I want to say it's Catherine somebody, but she says something along the lines of, pay attention to, oh, goodness, I should have written this down. But pay attention to all the little things they have to share with you when they come in and to talk to you, because if you don't listen to them when they tell you the little things, they won't share the big things with you, because to them, it's all been big things.
That is so
I really
true.
butchered that. I'll find that and put it up for you.
I love that. I remember my son coming to me and he wanted me to go watch the ants eating the cracker crumbs he'd put on the front porch. I mean, that was so important to him,
Right.
Yeah.
And if we don't show them that what's important to them when they're little is important to us, they won't share the things that are important to them when they're bigger and it's a little bit more critical for us. So that was just really important for me to learn. And I wanted to let my kids be part of my life. It's important to apprentice them in what it means to be wise, what it means to show godly discernment. And so many times I think, Marilyn, that we feel we have to make things to do with our kids. They just want to be part of our lives.
Yeah.
They just want to, one of my kids' big things was getting to ride with daddy to take the trash to the dump. We live, when you live out in the country, it's a trek to take the garbage out. And that was their big thing, or going to get the mail from the post office box and those things. Just making them feel important and special and needed. I think if you can keep those 4 things in mind, you're going to be way ahead of the game. So
that's great. It's so
more
good
than you wanted to know.
For young moms to remember. No, it's so good, because you can get caught in the busyness of the day and forget that. So it's great to hear from the perspective of a mom that has raised kids, what's really valuable.
When it's all said and done, a lot of the things that I thought were important didn't matter. Now that my youngest child is, I think she's 32 now. My youngest is 32 and my oldest is 52. And the things that I thought were so important when they were younger, I have found fell away. The relationships were what mattered at the end, and the character.
That's why I really appreciate you being with us today, because I think young moms need to hear it from your perspective. It's so important. Okay, Vicki, so this sounds great. Now you have a great plan to implement it. Tell us about that. And Vicki has this book called the Everyday Family Chore System, which I highly recommend. What she's going to talk about is in much more detail in this book. And well, I'll show you a little bit in a minute, but I love it because it spells it out so thoroughly.
Oh, thanks. Well, you don't have to buy the book to do anything we're talking about today. This is not a sales pitch, just so you know, but it all comes back to those expectations, implementing the plan. There are a lot of different ways to do this. There's not any one right way to do this. I'm going to kind of walk you through, as we talk today, some of the things that we did and how other people have used the kind of thing that I'm talking about. But it's really just about being purposeful. The first thing I had to do was figure out, if I'm going to do a chore chart of some sort, what's going to go on it? How do I pick what the kids are going to do each day? Some people find it really helpful to just make a job jar, and you have all of the jobs in the jar, and the kids pick out what their tasks are going to be today or this week or whatever. And if that works for you, that's great. It did not work for us for several reasons. First of all, the problem wasn't in in my estimation. We tried a bunch of those different charts. It didn't matter what chart I used. The chart wasn't the issue. I'd try it for 2 weeks, it would fall apart, whatever. The problem wasn't that the kids didn't know they were supposed to empty the dishwasher or sweep the stairs or whatever it was. The problem was their idea of sweeping the stairs and my idea of sweeping the stairs didn't match up. And that's where the conflict came.
Absolutely.
So I found that the issue for me was having some kind of rubric, some kind of mechanism for them to understand what the expectation was and for me to understand what was acceptable. And so I just went through, and some people say, well, this is great if you got 27 kids, but I've got 3 children. So in the book, I actually did a 3-kid plan because that's kind of an average. And I just said, okay, let's say your child is going to have 2 or 3 daily jobs. You figure they don't take that long. You feed the dog. And when I'm talking jobs, I'm not talking make your bed, personal care things. I'm talking about things that impact our family. I mean, I know brushing your teeth impacts the family ultimately, but but I'm talking about, the other things like feeding the dog, emptying the dishwasher or washing the dishes or whatever it might be. Yep. So I might say each child could handle easily doing 2 or 3 of these a day. And so, and it's the same in our family, it was the same job for the whole month. So if you swept the stairs and fed the dog and cleared the table, you did those same 3 jobs every day for a month for a couple reasons. First of all, we tried doing it once a week, doing for a week at a time and changing them, but it wasn't long enough for the kids to get into the habit of what their tasks were. And it wasn't long enough necessarily for some of them to learn how to do the task. And remember, I'm not in this just for free labor. This isn't just slave labor. This is, my kids would go around singing Cinderella, Cinderella. In fact, one of the kids asked me one day, she says, if we're doing all this stuff, what is it again that you do? So, but because I want them to learn how to do these things, we found that a month was a good time period. So they had the same 3 jobs each day. And then they had the same 2 or 3, whatever number you pick, jobs each week. So we had weekly jobs and daily jobs. And I just picked the things that were most important in our household. What cannot get dropped? So in fact, I give you an example. Let me just pull this. It's easier for me to do it out of the book because I've got it right here for you. Yeah. But so for example, I might say, I don't know if you can read this, it may be backwards for you, but child number 1 is weekly we'll go with daily first. Somebody has to empty the dishwasher and feed the animals. Somebody needs to tidy the bathroom and tidy the kitchen. Somebody needs to set the table and sweep the kitchen. So I've just divided those 6 tasks. The other stuff I'm going to end up doing, but remember we talked about it before, you're going to have to do them anyway. So if you've got a bunch more kids, great, you get a lot more things done. We'll start with the basics. On a weekly basis, this was my family's, choices. Somebody's got to vacuum and mop the kitchen. Somebody's going to tidy the porch and the yard, and dust, and somebody's going to clean the inside glass. We did not clean all of the windows all the time. Clean the inside glass and clean the bathroom. So it's just the basic things. And none of those things takes long. So it's not an overwhelming amount of work for a child. It's, maybe 5 to 10 minutes at the most. So anyway, that's how we set that up. So
can you tell people how you've got what is a tidy room in your book?
Sure.
What is a tidy room? I love this.
Well, I actually have these as free downloads, so you can print them from the website, but
good.
Let me grab that for you. The tidy room checklist was really helpful for us because I'll back up to you had asked me another question about what they had to do before school. And we had a before school checklist, which again, you can print from the website and tweak to your own needs. We didn't start school till 8:45. So these were the things like my bed is made, my body and hair are clean and tidy. I have on clean and mended clothes. My room is tidy and so forth. It's those personal care things.
Yeah.
And they're pretty objective. pretty specific, excuse me. But the one that says my room is tidy is one of those things that, like their idea and my idea match up. So then we have another one that's what is a tidy room? And it walks through just some very basic things. I was not trying to be, Martha Stewart or something, but it's stuff like the clean clothes are put away in the drawers or on hangers. Their dirty clothes are in the hamper. Nothing's on the floor that doesn't belong on the floor and so forth. And the last thing was the kicker. When I stand in the doorway and look in at the room, it looks like an orderly and pleasant place to be.
I
And
love this. You're just making it easy for the kids. You're breaking it down so they know exactly what's expected of them. Because we just assume our kids know the right thing to do, and they don't.
That's exactly right, Marilyn. We think they're gonna learn this by osmosis. We did it for them when they were younger, so certainly they would pick this up. If you've got very young children, I might take this list and do it as photographs on a little flip chart. I'm not a huge fan of drawings for younger children because they're still not as concrete as I would like. If I have, for example, for a small child, it said my bed is made, a picture of a bed made is one thing, but a picture of her bed made so she can see what her bed looks like when the cover, and I'm talking like the covers are pulled up and the pillows on the top. We're not talking seams along the edges. The reason this was very important to me, and I so appreciate what you just said about how, we think they're going to know this. The reason I did this to begin with was my mother was an amazing homemaker. She was a wonderful mother. She did everything herself. I did nothing. I was not trained to do anything other than wash dishes. And I had to do it a very specific way. When I left home, I was 17 when I left home for college and was never back again. But I never learned how to do anything around the house. And so I learned to do laundry by trying to read the instructions in Italian in a laundromat in Rome when I was 17. And I purposed I would never do that to my kids. I mean, I love my mom, but I wanted my children to know how to do these things, whether, they may have a housekeeper the rest of their life, but they would know how to do these things. And so that was really important to me because like you said, my mom was an amazing homemaker. None of it sank into me by osmosis, but we look and we think, okay, you see me empty the dishwasher every day. How can you not know where the dishes go? But they don't unless we're purposeful. So this is all about managing expectations, being deliberate, being purposeful, being methodical, and having a system. So anyway.
I love it. I mean, I love the way you break it down, and I want you to, I guess we'll get to it in a little bit about some of your
the little cards.
Yeah, the little cards. But first of all, tell us about your extra chores. Like, what about spring cleaning, fall cleaning, the stuff that you don't have to do every month?
Sure. I came up with a list of about, I don't know, be somewhere between 50 and 60. I haven't counted recently, little tasks. When I wrote it all up, I thought, what are about 55 or 60 different things? What are all the different things we might do? Like breaking little things down, cleaning the baseboards, wiping off the pantry shelves, cleaning off the refrigerator, all those little things that have to get done. And so those are the little types of tasks we built in, but maybe some of you are doing those things every day or every week. I'm not.
I'm not either.
Especially if I'm having to prioritize these tasks. So everything that was and they're all on how to do it cards. So and we'll go through this in a minute, but everything that's not a daily or weekly task, just that little card went into the job box. And the job box was great. They're 3x5 cards. And they were the tasks that we weren't doing all the time, cleaning the switch plate covers or cleaning the ceiling fans or whatever it might be. And on the rotation, when we talked about the weekly and the daily rotations, then I made sure that at one point I had added it after you saw that little chart there. Somebody's weekly job was called job from box. So, and if you had a lot of kids, you could have 2 kids whose task was job from box. And so for that child, when it came to their weekly tasks or chores or whatever you want to call it, service projects, then they would take a job card from the box that was one of those we don't do it all the time things. Now they're going to need a little bit more help with these because these aren't things that they're practicing all the time. So, and sometimes I might have to, because they're not doing them all the time, I might have to help them be selective about what's appropriate for their age level or their mastery level at that point. But that was really helpful. So the other thing about the job box was it was a great no-brainer disciplinary tool, because in our house, the rule was, if you have time to fight, you got too much time on your hands. Let me give you something to do. And I didn't have to think about it. It was just right there in the box. I could take I like quick and easy. But again, the problem had been not that they didn't know what their task was, but what the expectation was. So I just went through, I'm a very concrete sequential learner. So I just went through and I figured out things like clear the table, the steps for clearing the table. Now, if you decided this isn't how you wanted your kid to clear the table, that's okay. There's blanks, or you can just, make your own up, whatever. They're 3 by 5, but it's very specific. Take the serving dishes, the pans, silverware, butter, dishes, dirty. I mean, I'm listing everything I can from the table and the serving place into the kitchen. Put away any food and leftovers. With a damp cloth, wipe off the table and chairs. Clean up around the table, sweep the floor if needed, and push in the chairs. I mean, we got to be specific here, some kids.
Yeah,
neatly arrange any tabletop items. Now, some of you may think, put away the food or leftovers. Why do you need these little things that tell you how to do this? Let me tell you, because one kid had clear the table and one of them had tidy the kitchen. And this is how it played out in our house. The serving bowls are on the table because we're eating family style. At the end of the meal, somebody takes those things and they put them in the kitchen. The tidy the kitchen person says, that was part of the stuff that was on the dining room table. I'm not putting those away. And the other person says, well, in the kitchen now, I'm not putting those away. And they could sit there till they rotted. So, so we had to be specific. But so just, tidy the bathroom, clean the bathroom, shake out the rugs, empty the dishwasher, vacuum the baseboards. We even had a how to set the table card that walked them through just the basics. So again, pictures help. Lots of different ways to set this kind of thing up. We go through some different options for you. So anyway, probably more than you wanted to know, but
no, I love it. I love the way you break it down, and there's no questions. You're training them is what you're doing. You're training them to do the tasks that they'll need to do to be a successful adult. And that's what it's all about. How do you teach them what thoroughness is?
Okay, well, that's a great question, because we really talk about being thorough and diligent here. And that's where the cards come in. I wrote the cards in such a way that to do a thorough job meant to do the tasks that were on the card. I had to be willing to accept that if the card was done to a reasonable level, that was good enough. I don't know about you. Maybe I'm just a moody mom sometimes, but some days I would just be a little cranky. And it's like, sometimes I'm sure my kids felt like it didn't matter how much they did, it wasn't enough for me. And so this took that off the table. This meant, Mom, I did what you said. I did it reasonably well to the best of my ability. That should be enough. And so that was helpful for me. So the way I would do this was, depending upon the ages of the kids. Now, if you've got kids who are reading and have been doing some things around the house anyway, this is going to be a short-term thing of just, first of all, I would go through the card myself. Now, I may not need a card to tell me how to, clean the bathroom, but I've got a card that tells me what the steps are to clean the bathroom. And I would go through this card myself, reading it out loud, or let your kids read it to you. They'll think it's great to make you clean the bathroom. So they would read for me what the steps were. I didn't need the card, but I needed them to see that there was a method to my madness, that there was a reason that we do what we do, and that I could go through this step by step, and I would show them how to do it. Then the next time, or a few times later, depending upon the age and maturity level of your child, then I would have them do it, or at least parts of it. While I was there, we would go through it together, and they would take over doing some of those things. And I would help them if they couldn't remember what that looked like or whatever. Only when I know that the child has seen it modeled enough and shown me he's capable of doing it himself enough, will I expect him to do it without me standing there with him, or some level of supervision. Now, some of you are thinking that's great if your kid is 12 or 15, but my kids are 3. And some people ask me, how early can you start this? And my philosophy, totally my philosophy, is if my child is old enough to take stuff out, he's old enough to start learning how to put it back. Now, I am not, please do not leave this and say, Vicky Bentley said my 9-month-old pulled the encyclopedias down, so he should put them all back. No, what I mean is when he dumps out the toys and you play with them a little bit, then you can say, oh, look, the toys are on the floor. Let's put the toys back in the basket so we don't fall on them, and then we can keep them pretty. And then I'll put a toy in his hand and I'll help, put the toy in the bucket, and I'll help put the rest away. I'm modeling for him what that looks like. If my child is 2 or 3, some people will say they'll only give their kids the jobs that are age appropriate. My kids all go on the rotation no matter how old they are. They're just not going to do the jobs by themselves. Some of you may have kids with big age gaps and a big spread. You've got teenagers and toddlers. So you may pair them together. It's totally up to you how you do this. But for me, I knew that when my kids were little, this is not an overnight training thing. I have years to develop character and skills in them. But if I'm not methodical, if I'm not purposeful, and if I'm not deliberate, it's not going to happen. So I wanted to have these. I should give you a chance to talk. I'm sorry.
No. I want to hear from you. I'm excited about your system.
I'm excited about this, but I want to go back to what you said earlier about expectations, because Marilyn, I think that's so true. I can remember one of my teenagers, before I actually did this, we didn't have the card system yet. It was one of the reasons this was important to me. I had one of my teens clean the bathroom, and something that I looked for in the bathroom wasn't done. And I fussed at her about the bathroom, and she was really sweet about the whole, I wasn't ugly, but she was really sweet about the whole thing. She said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know you needed me to do that." And then she walked me through all the things she was cleaning stuff in that bathroom I would have never thought to clean.
Whoa.
But it didn't occur to her that the other thing was important. And that's when it really hit me that, it's not fair of me to judge my child on a job she's done when I haven't given her a standard. I haven't expressed to her what the expectations are. So that was really important to me. But the cool thing about the cards is I'm not the bad guy. The card is.
Yeah.
So if the job is not done satisfactorily, like there's stuff skipped or whatever, I can just say, think you need to look at your card again. Let me know if you need any help. And so that's been really helpful.
That's great. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's just so clear. It makes it clear for the kids.
Yeah. And we had consequences. We had rewards and consequences. So I used to say I would never bribe my kids for doing stuff. But then I realized, and some people would say, well, this rewards, a bit of star system, little stars that they got when they were young, when they first started this. And I know people would say, well, you're bribing your kid, but I think we all do what we do for the reward at the end. Ultimately, we hope that we do it for an intrinsic reward, but we start off with an extrinsic reward. Most of our guys go to work because they get a paycheck at the end, hopefully. We do a lot of things for the reward at the end. And I remember, so we have some consequences if the job is done poorly and you're old enough and mature enough to know better and to be able to do it thoroughly. I once heard Greg Harris, I think it was, say, they had a little saying in their house that we adopted to the point my kids put it on the wall. If you don't have time to do it right, you sure don't have time to do it over. And so we wanted to teach the kids, if you just do it right the first time, it takes a lot less time than doing it 2 or 3 times to get it right. So anyway.
That's so true. Well, laundry can be so overwhelming. How did you teach your kids to do laundry?
Laundry. Let's see. When my kids were young, were in the early years, my older kids went to public school. We didn't know about homeschooling yet. And so because I had a bunch of kids in public school, I did their laundry. They were gone all day and I did their laundry. But then I discovered that at one point I had a middle school age kiddo, back when we started homeschooling then, who her laundry would come back into the hamper folded just the way I'd given it to her. It's like, okay, I don't mind doing your laundry, but I don't want to do it twice because you didn't feel like putting it away. So I said, if this is going to keep happening, you're going to do your own. And that's when she started. And then I thought, she's 9, she can do her laundry by herself. So then I made sure that all the kids were doing it by themselves. And we didn't have them do the family laundry. We just had them do their own laundry. I have a chart on the wall. There's a chart in the book on how to do laundry.
Yeah,
so I would kind of walk. We just put that on the wall.
Yeah. How to do laundry. But kids Marilyn, don't know that. You can't expect them to know how to do that.
That's right. But it's really funny. We talked about learning, we didn't learn by osmosis. Some kids kind of do. We found that a lot of times our kids can do things at a lot earlier ages than we give them credit for. I'm not saying we have the expectations or task them with it, but my 3-year-old grandson was sitting on, I make the kids blessing blankets when they're born, with scripture verses on them. And his was on his bed and he was sitting on his blanket, and his 2-year-old brother came in eating a tomato, because that's where all 2-year-olds eat tomatoes, is on the bed. And so he put tomato juice on it. And And he said, the older one, the 3-year-old said, Charlie, you got tomato juice all over my bed, my blanket. Now I have to wash it. And he trucked down the hall and he pushed the stool over the washing machine and he pulled down, they have non-toxic detergent. So she pulled down the detergent. He washed his blanket, 3 years old, by himself. And then he did some family laundry. Now, please, I am not saying you should, expect your 3-year-old to do his own laundry or the family laundry. But the fact is, some kids can do things a lot earlier than we think they can. So
this occurred to me. This might be a good guide for a husband too. How to use the washer.
You notice the last line says, if you need to use bleach, see mom.
Oh, it's great. I just love the way you break it down. You make it simple and you make it clear.
Thanks.
Okay, you've got something in your book, House Rules for Older Girls While Still at Home. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. It was really important to us because, and I know this is I don't mean this to sound gender biased or whatever, but, because we had a lot of girls and they tended to stay at home. And, I'm just going to be honest, I'm sure our expectations for our girls at home are a little different than some of you with boys at home. They didn't pay rent and those sorts of things, but they helped around the house. But we didn't want them, if they weren't moving on to something else at a particular moment, maybe not going on to college or something right then, we wanted them to be productive. We wanted them to be moving forward in their lives. So we had a list of some different things that we wanted them to do. So they had to finish high school. They had to commit to growing in character. And we've got some little verses for that. They needed to continue in family devotions and worship. If they were going to stay with us, they were going to still be part of the family. Yeah. We didn't want to be one of those families where everybody's still there, but they're not connected anymore. They're not just, taking up a space. They needed to continue following our house rules. They needed to learn some skills. They needed to save and give their money. They needed to use their mind and talents. We talked to them about learning new skills and having education, apprenticeships, and things like that, and help with the household. And so the last line on the bottom says, if you're not sure of God's will for your life, because a lot of times when our kids are still home, it's because they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. I'm still waiting for God's direction. Yep. So we said, well, if nothing else, there's one sure answer. 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18 says, be joyful always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. So if you don't know anything else you're supposed to be doing, let's at least start here.
That's great. I love it. So how did you motivate your kids for success?
Oh, wow. Well, Marilyn, I learned really early that kids do what you inspect, not just what you expect. So even when the kids could do things well on their own, we needed to keep on top of that, keep on tabs. But to begin with, we started with a reward and consequences system. Like I said I would never bribe my kids, but I took one of my kids once to a daycare center on post. For a day, I had an appointment. And when I came back to pick her up, she was, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years old. And when I came back to pick her up, there were about 15 or 16 of these kids, these little preschool kids, all lying on cots quietly taking a rest. And I said, how did you get 15 or 16 kids to lie still, all that, together like that? And she said, we tell them that if they will lie there for 15 minutes till the timer dings, we'll give them 3 raisins, 3 stinking raisins. I mean, they lie there for 3 raisins. She said, we only have to do it for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then they get in the habit that this is what we do. And so we did the same thing. We had little stars and we told our kids, if you do your jobs today without being reminded, you get 2 stars. And they were self-monitored. They just made their little stars in their lesson plan book. I didn't need one more thing to have to keep track of. It was honor system. So if you have to be reminded, you only get 1 star. If you have to be reminded again, you don't get any stars, but you still have to do the job. And then we had some other things I could tell you another time for our teens, but then they had a 10-star box and a 25-star box in Daddy's closet with just little treats that we picked up. And it might just be little things like a little coupon that says you get to pick the game on game night, or you get to pick the movie on movie night, or you get to go with Daddy to the dump. It doesn't have to be something that costs you any money. Yeah. But after a while, they internalized those things and we didn't need those rewards anymore. They had just formed habits.
That's great. I love it. Okay, Vicki, what encouragement would you give to the struggling mom who's trying to make all this work and feels overwhelmed?
Wow. I guess I'd say this is a season. When you have very young children, it feels like you're going to always have very young children.
It really does. But you don't.
This is never going to change. I am never going to get to go to the bathroom by myself. I am never going to get to drink my coffee before it's cold, whatever it is. This is a season of investing in your children. And it's hard. It is a hard season. It's an investment of your time and of your energy and of your patience. But just like a financial investment, it's going to pay dividends. At some point, you're going to suddenly realize, because for a long time, when you do this kind of stuff, it feels like they're never going to learn this. They're never going to, why am I doing this? Why am I trying to be consistent? It's not working. But at some point, you're going to realize they did this stuff without me telling them. At one point when I want to say, and my kids, if I tell stories on my kids, I've always asked their permission, just so you know. But when Rebecca was about 16, and we'd been doing this for several years, I got one of those calls nobody ever wants to get. My husband was several states away on a month-long job. I was home with 8 kids by myself, and my sister called to say my dad had emergency surgery. He wasn't waking up. I needed to come home to Pennsylvania from Southern Virginia. And so I had like an hour's notice to get out of my house in the middle of the night. I took the kids to a sitter till Jim could get home, and somebody could take care of things. I didn't know how long I was going to be gone. I didn't get to prep meals. I didn't get to make lists. I didn't get to warn the kids about a bunch of stuff. I left. And I was gone for 8. I didn't know how long I was going to be gone. I was gone for 8 days. And during those 8 days, my husband is extremely capable, and he could have taken care of all the things for the kids himself. But it was such a blessing to him that he would say, okay, kids, we're leaving for church. Make sure you brush your teeth. And they'd say, Rebecca already had us do that. Or we need to put on your shoes now. Oh, Rebecca already put them on. She had taken care of everything because she stepped in and did the things that had now become automatic for her to be able to do. I hope nobody else has to test it that way, but it showed me that there was fruit to what we were doing. Yeah. And I could really tell that it had paid dividends when one of my last kids got married, and she left home. And the next day I thought, somebody needs to feed the dog. Oh, I guess that's me.
Oh, that's where I'm at right now. Like
the dishwasher. Oh, that's me.
Yeah. My last one left in August. So we're empty nesters now, but all those chores that the kids did, they're all mine now.
That's right. Oh, well.
Vicki, this has been wonderful. And I want to remind people again about this resource, the Everyday Family Chore System. All those little cards she showed you are in there. Like, how to read devotions, how to clean the laundry room, how to feed the animals, all that stuff's in there. Oh, it's amazing. Be such a help training kids. So tell people how they can get in touch with you. Do you have a blog, a website? What other resources do you have?
You can find me at everydayhomemaking.com. I'm also, if they're on Facebook, if y'all are on Facebook, I'm at Everyday Homemaking and Everyday Homeschooling. I am going to be offering 20% off for Marilyn's listeners for another week after this broadcast. The coupon code will be Marilyn20. So Marilyn's name, Marilyn20. We'll give you 20% off. So you can
take advantage of it, because seriously, this is a lifesaver. I wish I had it.
And you don't have to, like I said, we've talked about enough things here. You could do this yourself if you wanted to. If you don't want to reinvent the wheel, the book is there for you. But we do have the blog, the website, everydayhomemaking.com. I just really have a heart for providing some practical helps for busy families. So.
I love your heart's the same as my heart. Like, I love encouraging young moms, and that's what you're doing, and giving them the tools to make their job easier. And that's just so valuable. So thank you so much for being with us today. Tell us a little bit, like, how would people join HSLDA if they wanted to do that?
If you go to hslda.org, you can find information about the benefits of HSLDA membership. We have some different types of discounts available for families that qualify. just a lot of great resources for you. That does give you access to the legal staff for any legal questions, as well as the educational staff. We have educational consultants from preschool through high school, plus special needs and struggling learners. And if your oldest child isn't 5 yet, we do have a free preschool parent membership for you. So check that out.
Super. So yeah, check it out. So Vicki, again, thank you so much. It's been a joy having you with us. I know you've helped lots of moms. Thank you so much.
Bye, Marilyn.
Bye-bye.